I'm going to show you how to put the mane on the lion. And this is a little bit different stitch, not one you're going to do very often at all. I've only had to put a mane on one other animal, and that was on the Noah's Ark stocking, and I can't even remember if it was done the same way or not. But I've gotten all of it done and on the bottom part, so I'm going to show you hopefully how to do it from here. So I'm putting my knot so it comes in at an angle, so when I stitch across here that knot's going to be hidden in there. If you look on the back side, you can't see where I hid my knots the first time, so that's why I'm doing that. I like to hide my knots. Okay, so the first part of this is a little loop that you're just going to leave hanging there, and the second stitch I'm going to bring up right through as much as I can the same hole that it's coming out of, the needle's coming out of on the front side from the first stitch. I'm going to leave a loop here. Got a little tug there. Working with the thread, making sure I don't get a knot. And that's about the right size. Then I'm going to make a stitch to secure it, and this one's going to be right next, pretty close to that first stitch, but it's going to start the next loop, hopefully. Okay, so I'm going to do a locking stitch this time. This one comes all the way down and locks that bigger loop, and you can adjust a little bit if you think you need it bigger or smaller. Okay, next one will come right next to that again. Actually, I'm going to put this right in that first hole of that new hole for the new loop. I'm going to make a loop. Now comes the securing stitch. I'm going to put it right next to the one I just made and pull it all the way through. And it's pretty much as simple as that. Next stitch comes, I'm going to make the loop, so I come right up through the hole I just made, make the loop, do the securing stitch next to it, which starts the next loop. Hope you can see this good. And let me just look at my loops to make sure. You can kind of, your fingers become a pressing tool. But as I'm going, I'm trying to be consistent. It's handmade. You might not get it consistent every time. I'm going to start the next loop. Oh, wait a minute, I started the next loop. I'm going to start the secure. Yeah, okay, so I'm coming back through the same hole I made to start another loop. I'm sorry, and my tail is going to be my thread tail. Got in the way, I got to pull it back out. Making sure I like where it's at. Now I'm going to do the securing stitch, which starts the location of the next one. I hope this makes sense. Took me a little while to figure it out. And I'm getting, as I'm showing you this, I'm doing it a little looser. Up. Don't want to get my threads knotted. I noticed as I went around the head that I got tighter, and it's always hard to keep things consistent in their size. He's a little looser up here where I'm showing you. It took me a whole strand, a full length strand to get to about here. It took me another strand to get over here and another strand to get up here. So it's going to take me a full strand to get, oops, I pulled too tightly. to get across his head. I have to think about this. I don't do this stitch very often. I have to come back up that hole I just made to make a new loop. Do the locking stitch. Yeah, I think I got it pulled on top of the loop. Come back here. Oops. You can play with it a little bit. I'm going to finish it up and show you how to end the stitching that this last loop has. It's wanting to curl up on me. I probably should have straightened it out before I pulled it through. Best laid plans. Okay. It is really twisted. All right, I'm going to continue to show you how I deal with this because it may happen to you. It's all twisted is what's happened. And it's twisted a little bit more here at the end, so I've just pulled my needle out and let the thread kind of untangle, untwist. Okay. Now, let's thread this back up. This is a good time for me to note I also am using a chenille needle that has a larger eye for a strand that's using all 6 threads. Sometimes the needles that come in the kits don't have big enough eyes to make it very easy. So I'm going to do a locking stitch now on the back side. That's what's left to make here after I've made this loop. I'm going to make it here, and I'm going to drag the end of it inside this row of stitching in this main. Okay, and I'm going to make a big mess, I can see. I hope that made sense. So I'm hiding it in here. I'm going to make a knot, and I'm not going to pull anything, so I'm going to make a knot on its own end here. I'm not going to, like I usually hook it in the stocking or felt piece. I'm not going to do that here. I'm going to make it on its own self, and I'm just going to hide it in there. And then I'm going to hide the end of the yarn by pulling this all through here. I'm going to tug on this while I'm getting ready to cut it, and it buries itself in there. That's especially good to do when you have ornaments where the backside may be seen. So he looks pretty good. He looks like a cowardly lion to me.